Yep, right, here we go, another instalment of the sort of vintage inspired motorcycle clothing from the 1950s and 60s. This time it's the BELSTAFF Trialmaster, and this particular jacket is a reissue of the original 1948 version, The Great Pretender. Now that sounds a little bit harsh. I've not got a downer on Bellstaff, but you know, we need to get sort of history right here. The BARBOUR International jacket was introduced, as we know it now, in 1947. After a long period of evolution beginning in the 1930s, BARBOUR was a well-established company, not just making motorcycle clothing, but all sorts of performance outdoor clothing, specialising in waxed cotton. Bellstaff was a relatively new company that had only started up in the 1920s, and they sort of put all their eggs in one basket by sticking to motorcycle clothing, and to that end they were always sort of riding on the coattails of BARBOUR. Now in the immediate post-war era, Bellstaff was struggling. BARBOUR brought the BARBOUR International jacket out, which was really popular, a sales hit, and in order to survive, Bellstaff copied it in 1948. Okay, there were some subtle differences, but to all intents and purposes, this was a copy of the original BARBOUR International jacket. Now, Bellstaff didn't have the reputation that BARBOUR had, and the only way that they could really compete with BARBOUR was to make the jacket substantially cheaper, which meant cutting corners with some of the materials used. And the differences are apparent in this 1948 reissue. Now, when I released the video about the BARBOUR International a few weeks ago, a lot of people came up in the comments section and said, you know, they had a Bellstaff. I did too. My very first proper motorcycle jacket was either a Bellstaff Tourmaster or a Bellstaff Roadmaster. I'm not quite sure which. And the reason for that was that even then, in the early 1980s, Bellstaff were considerably cheaper than the BARBOUR equivalent, and I couldn't afford the BARBOUR. Now, as you know, I managed to get my hands on a BARBOUR a few years ago because the tables have turned somewhat. The Bellstaffs are now substantially more expensive than the BARBOUR, despite arguably have been slightly of a lesser quality, although, you know, I don't want to put too much emphasis on that because I don't think it really makes any difference. And the main reason for Bellstaff's higher price these days is mainly due to the fact that Bellstaff do a lot of marketing. Brand ambassadors like David Beckham and Ewan McGregor don't come cheap, and unfortunately the price of hiring those sort of people has been loaded onto the garments, which for the most part make these Bellstaff jackets unaffordable for most people. In fact, I've been looking for around about 5 years. They never seem to be discounted until this January, when I saw them at what is in essence a knockdown price, although they're still sort of substantially more expensive than the likes of a BARBOUR. Now normally these are around about £500, but Flannels, a British retailer of, you know, this sort of clothing, we're offering these jackets at around about £350, which is a substantial saving from the recommended retail price. That's the first time I've ever seen these jackets discounted, so I snapped one up. And when my partner found out, she also snapped up one of the heirloom versions of this jacket, which I will show you in another video. Now, I've got no affiliation with Flannels. In fact, in my opinion, they're not the best company in the world to do business with. But I will have a look, and if they're still offering these jackets at that lower price, I'll leave a link in the video description. If not, it's up to you to do the searching. Now, the Bellstaff's iconic status came from the fact that it was cheaper than the BARBOUR, which meant more people were able to afford them, so they were more popular. Now, I will make a comparison video of the two, and I'll also include the ladies' heirloom Bellstaff. But for now, I want to concentrate on the BELSTAFF Trialmaster itself. For a start, it's made from a lighter weight 6-ounce Miller waxed cotton. It has the same basic configuration of pockets with a slightly slanted map pocket, which, if I'm honest, isn't really big enough to serve as a map pocket. It's more of a nod to the styling than, a concerted effort to make a proper map pocket. And that's one of the areas where Bellstaff made some savings in the cost of manufacturing these jackets, because both breast pockets are quite small. Bellstaff also omitted the zip-up right-hand breast pocket and just replaced it with a small waterproof pocket. To be honest, I don't really miss the zip pocket. It is a little bit awkward to use, but it is something that served to get the price of these jackets down. So compared to the Barbour, it would have been cheaper to produce also using the 6-ounce rather than Barbour's 8-ounce Miller. Saved money. The inside of the jacket is lined with what I think is a tartan cotton pattern. Again, this was a direct copy of what Barbour was doing, although it's a slightly different pattern and a different colour. This jacket has no thermal lining, but like the Barbour, you can buy a sort of clip-in or press-stud-in gilet, thermal gilet, for thermal protection during the colder months. Personally, I prefer to just layer up, so to that end, I did buy a jacket with plenty of room in it. I could have got away with one size down, I think, from this one, but the way they wore these jackets back in the day, they wore them baggy, they cinched them up with the belt around the middle, and then that allowed them to layer up and bulk out during the winter months, jumpers, etc. That was how they were meant to be worn. As you've just seen there, the cuffs fasten up with a 2-position press stud fastening, and they are more generous than that of the Barbour. Can actually use the tightest fastening on my wrists, which is unusual. Now, to get around the fact that they'd used a lighter weight waxed cotton on these jackets, what they did is they doubled it up with patches on the elbows and the shoulder areas, the main sort of impact areas on any motorcycle jacket. I should point out that these are not armoured jackets. Just like with the classic BARBOUR International, they are a reissue of the original classic motorcycle product, but they don't meet the current specifications as safety wear. If you want to wear armour with these jackets, you can. What I would recommend is that you pop along to Knox, buy one of their action shirts, which can be used as a standalone armoured system, and just pop one underneath these jackets. Again, I have no affiliation with Knox, but I think they do about 3 different ratings of these action shirts, ranging from A to AAA. And the big advantage of using something like this over a normal armoured jacket is that you can get your armour to fit properly and then simply place a jacket over it. I see way too many people wearing loose armoured jackets, and armour is next to useless if it doesn't fit your body properly. Now, the zip fastener is a 3/4 length one-way zip made by a company called Ruby. I had to look these up to see who they were. Apparently they're a Spanish firm that have been going since the 1920s. And from what I can gather, they are considered to be of exceptional quality. Obviously, back in the day, this was another cost-cutting measure. A one-way zip is cheaper than a two-way zip, and by making it 3/4 length, it meant that by just undoing the single pop fastener at the bottom, you could accommodate a comfortable riding position on your bike without worrying too much about scratching your tank. It has been designed in such a way that, I certainly didn't feel that it was putting too much pressure on the zip when you were sitting on the bike. Bellstaff used a similar double storm flap system for fastening over the zip and protecting it from water ingress. What I will say again, there is evidence of those cost-cutting measures here. The first storm flap, or inner storm flap, is much less generous than that you see on the Barbour. Again, saving material to save money. I'm pretty sure this will work just fine. And they should be regarded more as historic features rather than, one jacket being better than the other. In a way, for me, it's nice to see that Bellstaff have built the jacket to its original specifications rather than trying to beef everything up to compete with anybody else. You know, this is an original icon from the 1940s. And these features, in my opinion, are the original sort of details that make this a genuine reissue rather than an interpretation. Now, in order to get around the lighter rated 6-ounce Miller-Rein that were used in these jackets, what they've done is they've doubled up on the elbows and the shoulders with additional patches, which will effectively give sort of wear resistance of a 12-ounce Miller-Rein. This is what motorcycle armour looked like right up until the 1990s. Now, all the brasswork has been sort of patternized or antiqued, so it's not as bright and shiny as the brass fasteners are on the Barbour, although on the Barbour they do patternize with time. And also the trademark patch on the left shoulder of the Phoenix Bellstaff emblem has been dulled down somewhat since the 1980s. These used to be a very bright gold, whereas now it's a sort of a muddy yellow to give the impression that it's had some wear and tear. One thing I did notice that I was a bit disappointed about is that Bellstaff no longer use the enamel pin badges. You all used to find one in the pocket that you could fasten on the lapel or whatever. They don't do those anymore, and I think they really should for the price. It does seem to me that the Bellstaff jacket is a slightly better tailored fit than the Barbour. The Barbour is a bit sort of sack-like in the way it fits, and I do like the sort of silhouette on myself with this jacket compared to the Barbour. Of course, being a black jacket also helps. And I suppose I better sort of discuss the actual sizing itself as well. Bellstaff have been through some transitions over the last couple of decades. Bellstaff, the original company, got into trouble. They were bought out by an Italian designer firm. That's when the prices went up. And they are now back in British ownership. Whether they're still made in the UK, I'm not sure. I know at one point they were being made in Romania. I did hear that manufacture had come back to the UK, which also, you know, may be part responsible for the price increase. But for some strange reason, it's normally advertised in Italian sizes. Now, I don't think Italian men are generally any smaller than men from any other country. But the sizing from small to, I think it's 4XL, are substantially different from what you would see here in the UK or in the US. Now, this is a 2XL. Normally I would be an XL in a jacket like this, so I had to go up one size. Also, bear in mind, if you want to put armour underneath or you want to layer up underneath, you may have to go another size further. For the best guidance, I would advise going on to Bellstaff's own site and have a look at their own size guide for the jacket that you're looking at, because it does give sort of guidance on, you know, what size to be looking for if you live in the UK or in the US. This jacket is technically a 46, whereas in UK sizes an XL would be a 46. And once you've got your head around that, they fit true to size. Now, I'm sure a lot of people in the comments section are going to point out the fact that Bellstaff do actually make motorcycle-specific gear, i.e. armoured jackets just like this. Now, the Trialmaster Pro armoured jacket, to my mind, it's lost the vintage aesthetics that I'm looking for when riding a modern classic motorcycle. It's also substantially more expensive than this jacket. And to be honest, I would never have bought this jacket at the full price. I love the jacket, but I don't like the price much. I think it's way too much for what you're getting. At the end of the day, what you're doing is you're just lining some celebrities' pockets. And let's face it, their pockets are full enough already. In fact, if I'm honest, this jacket cost me £350. I probably wouldn't have paid that if it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to make a video on the subject, and I was able to justify it in that way. Now, all motorcyclists have got different budgets for the gear. I know some people want to do it on a shoestring budget. That's fair enough, I've been there myself. And there are plenty of sort of copies available from companies like RST and Merlin that will give you the same sort of look, but without the true heritage, at what appears to be a bargain price. And there's nothing wrong with that, like I say, I've been there myself. But for the modern classic rider that wants to dress sort of appropriately for his steed, if you want real heritage, companies like BARBOUR and Bellstaff are the companies to be looking at. And I'll have a look round and see what else I can rustle up in the coming months. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I would also appreciate it if you would leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber, and also consider signing up to my Patreon page or using the super thanks button down below if you want to help in other ways. That's how I fund this type of video. I am of course going to be back on Friday, so until then please ride safely and I'll see you soon.